Hey everyone, welcome to another Toolbox Tech Talk with me, DJ Glenmo, and my geeky doppelganger, Glenn Morris over there. He's going to be talking to you today something about really geeky stuff. This is about ERAC, the Electrical Regulatory Authority Council. What a mouthful. But actually, ERAC came out with some clarity on the battery standard. And so, my doppelganger, go Glenn, you're going to sort it out for us today and make it all simple. So thanks to ERAC for the clarification, and over to you, Glenn. Well, thanks very much, DJ Glenmo, for that handover. Yeah, you're a funny guy. Anyway, loving that bling. But look, it's time to get down to some real techie stuff, and it's all about the new battery standard. Well, I keep saying new. It's a few years old now. So AS NZS 5139, published in 2019, came into force in all states and territories in Australia in mid-2020. Oh, what a year that was. So it's now a mandatory requirement to comply with that standard. But there are some problems with it. The problems with this standard is it's got some ambiguities in it. And some of these have actually been sort of ironed out by an organisation known as the Electrical Regulatory Authorities Council, or ERAC. So ERAC actually represents all the state and territory regulators in Australia and New Zealand. Sorry, nearly forgot New Zealand's in there as well. And so what they do is try to come up with consensus recommendation to their members about interpretations of things like Australian standards. And in February this year, they published a document on their website. So you can go to erac.gov.au, erac.gov.au, and download the publication from there. It's titled Battery Storage Systems, 02 February 2021. So it's a PDF that you can download. But I thought I'd just run you through it since we've got it here, and sort of explain some of the issues that it tries to solve. So I must point out first that this document was produced in consultation with all the electrical safety regulators of states and territories of New Zealand. So it's a collective publication, and it aims at providing interpretation. So just kind of consider that there may be some variation on this depending on when your regulator chooses to enforce these things. But it is kind of best practice advice, and I'm pretty sure if you complied with this, you would be on the right side of correct. So this standard really only applies to battery systems and their power conversion equipment, or connected to power conversion equipment. And it covers both Australia and New Zealand, AS/NZS 5139, though in New Zealand there is still an adoption period, which is basically kind of requiring New Zealand electricity regulations to reference this standard, though it is providing best practice guidance for New Zealand at the moment. So a couple of other things to consider: that your jurisdiction may have additional requirements to what the Australian standards require and what ERAC's guidance document requires. So make sure you comply with those as well. So I'm giving you all these kind of disclaimers because there is no simple one-size-fits-all when it comes to standards. There will be a bit of wiggle room and a bit of interpretation and variation. So, as I mentioned, 5139 was published on the 11th of October, sets out the general installation and safety requirements for battery energy storage systems. The standard places restrictions on where battery energy storage systems, also known as BESSs, can be located, and the places and other equipment located in close proximity to the BESS. So as the BESS is considered to be a source of ignition, the requirements within this standard ensure that the unit is adequately protected from external influences, including damage and other heat sources. So there's a bunch of restricted locations that are specified in sections 4, 5 and 6 of this standard, 5139. And these restrictions, like I said, can be a little bit tricky in terms of how to understand what they refer to. So first up in the ERAC guidance document is external damage. So definitions around what that is. So a BESS, and this is ERAC's guidance document stating this now, a BESS must not be installed in a location where damage from external influences may be expected, such as from a vehicle, So additional measures may be used to mitigate the risk. So, e.g. bollards installed in such a manner to prevent a vehicle from making contact with the BESS, or the installation in a position or location that provides the protection necessary to prevent a vehicle from making contact with the BESS. Now that could be, the actual location of the battery is out of harm's way. It could be up high, it could be in a recess behind a pillar. So you may have some natural zones that protect the battery from impact. So point number 2 is hazardous locations. Now, hazardous locations are pretty obvious, where there's a potential explosion risk, and it says that a BESS must not be installed in a hazardous area, as defined by AS/NZS 3000. So now we've got to look up 3000, and we'll find that in figure 4.18, there's distances from gas cylinders, and following on from that, 4.19, there's distances from gas relief vent valves. So those are pretty important because, you don't want to start a large gas fire with a small spark. So the local gas network providers, or GNPs, to tell you the truth, I'd never had heard of that acronym before reading this document, may have additional requirements regarding exclusion zones around gas meters for switchboards and other sources of ignition, such as power conversion equipment. Don't you love that? Power conversion equipment, PCE for short. It's basically anything that modifies voltage, frequency, or current is deemed to be PCE. So please ensure you confirm with the relevant GNP within the area of the installation. And in addition, please refer to the known jurisdiction requirements at the end of the document. So the document I'm referring to once again is this ERAC document. So I'll touch on those at the end. Now, there's a bunch of points we're going to go through. Sorry, it's pretty dry, but this is kind of important stuff, and I'll try my best to make it fun and interesting because I know people are taking time off on a Sunday to listen to this Toolbox Tech Talk, so let's make it a bit more fun. Airflow and vents. Now, a BESS must not be installed within 600 mils horizontally and 900 mils below an opening window to a habitable room. Now, you've got to watch that one. It's not just an opening window, but the window opening to a habitable room. Or if there are vents, such as mechanical or electrical, ventilation. So you might have extraction fans from a kitchen, for instance, or you might have an extraction fan from a bathroom for steam. Those are vents, and so you've got to stay that 600 mils horizontally and 900 mils below that ventilation point if it's ventilating a habitable room. Incidentally, bathrooms aren't deemed to be habitable rooms, so we can rule that one out, but kitchens are. So passageways and walkways, exits and escape. Now that's another one. They are pretty important too. So one of the principles of this standard is protection of life and limb. And what you don't want is, in case of a fire inside a building, say in a residential building, that you don't impede access to exiting that building. The same would apply for commercial as well. You've got to have safe means of exit from a building. So passageways, walkways, exits and escape routes. A BESS must not be installed. Now, this is point number 4 from this ERAC document. So I'll just repeat that. So point number 4 is passageways, walkways, exits and escape routes. A BESS must not be installed. And B, within a passageway, walkway, exit or escape or evacuation route, or underneath or below entrance and exit walkways, staircases, evacuation and escape routes, and passageways external and internal to the building. Wow, that's pretty much everything. So basically, where you might walk to get out, whether it's stairs, a bridge, a passageway, it shouldn't have a BESS installed in that location. Now, there are some notes to this one, notes 4A and 4B. These requirements include all structures irrelevant of the construction method or materials. So you can't just say, oh, it's a concrete stairs, doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Smoke rises. So smoke generated from a BESS that has been ignited may be noxious and therefore impede a person from utilizing an escape route directly above the BESS. So it's not just about the fire burning the structure, it's about toxic fumes. And in timber frame structures, structural damage will occur initially above a fire and may impact on the structural integrity of the escape route above. So basically that's a really techie way of saying the stairs might collapse because they're partially burnt. So within 600 mils from any exit, that has an opening 900 mils or less. Now, I'm really glad they've stated this one. 600 mils from any exit, and then people who are asking, oh, what about a garage door? Is that could be an exit, but it's really wide. Well, you can obviously walk around to the non-hazardous side of a wide opening. So that 600 mils from an exit is limited to openings that are 900 mils or less. So basically doorways. Okay, so we're up to point I, openings that are wider than 900 mils, such as a garage opening, which I just mentioned, must allow a person to pass more than 1 metre from the nearest side of the BESS. Now, apparently there's a variation in New South Wales on this, so that's an interesting note. But once again, 900 mils or wider is not deemed to be an impediment to exit, but you must have at least 1 metre of clearance from the BESS itself if you're walking around it to get out through the garage door. Number 5, accessibility. Now, a BESS must not be installed on roofs, excluding roofs that are accessible via permanently installed or fixed staircase or access ladder. So, it's a piece of equipment that you need to maintain. It can't just be balancing on a tin roof somewhere. I can't imagine anyone would do this, but they're stating it pretty clearly that it needs to be a permanently installed or fixed staircase to access or access by ladder if it is on a roof specifically designed to carry the weight of the battery. Can't be installed within ceiling spaces or set into wall cavities. However, a recess that is entirely sealed to the cavity with non-combustible material is not considered to be a cavity. So you could actually have like a little barbecue area set into the wall. If it's made from non-combustible material, as long as it doesn't open into that cavity, then it's fine. It can actually be recessed into that space. A BESS that is installed within a separate non-combustible enclosure or housing that is recessed into and entirely sealed to the wall cavity is not considered recessed into the wall cavity. So once again, the enclosure itself could be seen to be that protection against the spread of fire. We're nearly there, up to number 6. So number 6 is a BESS must not be installed in any location where the installation of a switchboard is prohibited. Now this is taken from AS NZS 3000. What we're talking about here is clause 2.10.2.5, and it says in any location where the installation of a generation system is prohibited, refer to clauses, and boy, here we go. I'll put them on the screen. 6.2.4.7, 6.3.4.7, and 6.4.4.7 as of the 2018 edition of 3000. Now, I can't show you actually excerpts from that standard or any standard because that's copyright material, but I can refer to the words that I'm describing to you now. Other locations specifically prohibited by a manufacturer can also be excluded. So if the manufacturer says you can't put it in an environment where there are, I don't know, insects, I'm just making this up, then you can't put it in an environment where there are insects. So make sure, as always, you comply with the manufacturer's recommendation. So refer to the specific manufacturer's installation instructions for your product. Restricted areas surrounding a BESS, such as electrical appliances, as defined once again in AS NZS 3000, that are not associated with a BESS may not be located closer than 600 millimeters horizontally or 900 millimeters above the BESS. Now, this is another area of a lot of confusion because the standard only mentions a couple of appliances. So here, ERAC have defined it a bit better. So they say these include, but not limited to, heat pumps, air conditioning equipment, and associated control gear, such as hot water cylinders, gas and electric, motors and control gear, stoves and hot plates, gas cooktops, stationary appliances, as defined by AS NZS 3000. Solar power conversion equipment, such as PCEs, including inverters that supply a charge to the BESS, are excluded from this restriction. So I'll really emphasize that. If you've got a solar inverter and it's within that so-called exclusion zone for non-associated appliances, you're fine if it's providing charge to that BESS. So if you've got an AC coupled BESS, no worries at all. So the following items of equipment are not considered to be electrical appliances as per the definition. Things like switches and isolators is not an appliance. Socket outlets are not an appliance. Now, barriers behind the BESS. So this is another consideration about protection against the spread of fire. So when a BESS is installed on a wall or placed on the ground within 300 millimeters of a wall, note that, within 300 millimeters of a wall that has a habitable room on the other side. It's all about what's on the other side of that wall. There is additional requirement to install a non-combustible barrier on the wall behind the BESS to delay the spread of fire. It's not really a protection permanently, it's just to delay the spread of fire. So a habitable room is defined in clause 1.3. What is it now? 1.3.4.2 in AS/NZS 5139, and includes but not limited to the following, and they're taken actually from the National Construction Code and the Building Code for New Zealand, the National Construction Code for Australia. They line up perfectly. So these are things such as bedrooms, study rooms, and rooms used as home offices, living rooms, family rooms, lounge rooms, kitchen and dining rooms, playrooms, sewing rooms, TV and music and entertainment rooms, sunrooms. So these are all deemed to be habitable spaces where you, A, can't install a battery storage system, and B, if it's on the other side of a wall to one of these rooms, requires that protection against the spread of fire. So a surface deemed to be non-combustible barrier after being tested in accordance with AS 1530.1. That's a non-combustibility test standard. So it includes methods for fire tests on buildings, materials, components and structures, part 1, and the combustibility test for materials. So these materials, which are exempt from the need to be tested to AS 1530.1, include brick or masonry block. Great. A lot of houses are made of that. Concrete. Great. Compressed cement sheeting, which is pretty popular these days to use as a barrier, and ceramic or clay tiles, also known as terracotta tiles. Now, there's a note in the guidance document from ERAC. It says that although not a mandatory requirement, cement sheeting with a thickness of 6 millimeters is considered industry best practice. So I don't know if you can get super thin because it's so fragile, but 6 millimeters is considered best practice. So let's go for that. Walls that are constructed of one or more of these materials do not require further barriers. So if you actually had a wall made from compressed cement sheeting, then you're good to go. Barriers installed behind the BESS need to be extended to at least the following dimensions. That means 600 mils beyond the vertical sides of the BESS and 900 mils above. It's basically the same measurement as that exclusion zone for appliances not associated with the BESS. That's 600 either side and 900 above. If the BESS is, however, within 900 mils of the ceiling, the surface of the ceiling must be protected with a barrier that extends another 600 millimeters past the outer extremities of the BESS and leveled to the lowest portion of the BESS. So basically you're creating a barrier that goes up the wall, and if the BESS is outside, under the eaves as well. If it's inside in the low ceiling area, it will include that ceiling. So the following are not considered suitable barriers, whether coated by a covering or not. So timber panels are not a suitable barrier. Plasterboard, particle board. So barriers may not have perforations or other openings within the required dimensions, that's that 600 mils either side and 900 above, with any openings greater than 5 millimeters. And if they are, they shall be sealed with a fire retardant sealant. Now, that would include things like, a switchboard enclosure with rear entry. You're going to have to fill those rear entry holes just as you would in a normal switchboard enclosure. So here's a few more variations based on jurisdiction. And so there's some particular ones for Victoria. So Victoria, in the Victorian gas distribution requirements, 1,000 millimeter diameter from the gas meter vent to a distance of 1,500 millimeters in the direction of discharge. So there's a pressure release valve on bottles and gas meters, and so you've got to be 1,500 millimeters from those valves, and 1,000 millimeters from the gas meter itself in a circular arrangement. So that's a Victorian requirement. There is further details about that, of course, available from Energy Safety Victoria. So what about New South Wales? Yeah, so shout out to New South Wales. We know you're doing it tough right now, just as we did up until only a few weeks ago. So yeah, our thoughts go out to you. Just keep safe, and let's hope it all ends quickly, the spreading lockdown. Anyway, back to this ERAC guidance document. In New South Wales, all openings are regardless of size, which can be utilised as an exit, e.g. a garage door. Double door openings are classified as an exit, and a BESS shall not be installed within 600 mils of an exit. Now, this is a bit of a variation from what I just stated earlier, where it was basically, as long as you had a metre clearance to get around it. But in New South Wales, it just deems that any exit, such as garage doors, double doors, are considered an exit, and you have to be 600 mils away from that exit point. All right, so time for New Zealand. New Zealand, there are exclusion zones associated with gas supply, and the distances are in the standard. The Electrical Regulatory Authority Council has helped in the production of this document, and look, credit to them for providing clarity to the industry. So that's been really, really good to be able to provide some guidance, not just making it up on the spot, because I get asked this all the time, particularly the one about associated appliances, where people say, Glenn, is an inverter an associated appliance? And the best I could answer previously was, well, I don't know. It sort of wouldn't make sense because you kind of need it, but now we know. If you have an inverter within that 600 mils, 900 mils above zone, it's fine if it's providing charge to a battery system. Well, so there you go. Thanks to everyone for listening, and I'm going to go hand back to my doppelganger, DJ Glenmo. So back to you, DJ. Well, thanks a lot, Glenn, and that was a good explainer. I mean, gee, that was dense material, but you really got it out there, and I think we're a bit better in understanding that battery standard. It's really a bit of a brain blow when you first have to read it, but the clarity that's been provided by ERAC really helps. So thanks a lot, Glenn, and everyone, thanks for turning up for another Toolbox Tech Talk, and I hope to see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Okay. Peace.